In a major pushback against the central government's Tribunal Reforms Act of 2021, the Supreme Court of India in fact squashed this act of parliament and reasserted the idea of tribunal independence. In fact, we know very well that our constitution provides for separation of powers, that is between judiciary, executive and legislature. But tribunal is one unique institution which is an interface institution between executive and judiciary, because some matters of adjudication are very technical, and along with that there is a requirement of joint action by executive and judiciary. There is a provision for establishment of tribunals. But of late, we have observed very clearly that there is excessive tribunalization which is happening, and along with that, most of these tribunals are working under the executive control, and along with that, the terms of working of the members of tribunal, their salaries, their terms of service and conditions, everything is put under the central government control through this Tribunal Reforms Act of 2021, and this in fact diminishes the judicial independence. Because of which reason, the Supreme Court of India, in a major pushback today, it has in fact squashed the Tribunals Act of or Tribunal Reform Act of 2021, which is in fact a legalized form of a prior ordinance which was squashed by the Supreme Court in 2017. Because of which reason, so in fact, the Supreme Court has reiterated its intention of establishing a National Tribunal Commission in 4 months. And this National Tribunal Commission is going to ensure the independence and autonomy of the tribunals. So primarily because the tribunals play a very important role in protecting the independence of judiciary, and along with that they also provide fair and timely mechanism of justice to the people. In a major flip back from its earlier stance, the Supreme Court of India yesterday has permitted the post facto environmental clearances which have been accorded for multiple development projects across the country by the Environment Ministry. We know very well that according to the Environment Conservation Act in India in 1986 and the Environmental Impact Assessment Provisions of 1994 and 2006, there are multiple provisions which require environmental clearance to be acquired by any developmental project even before the project takes off. In fact, the environmental impact assessment can be done in a fair and equitable manner only when it is done before the start of the project. But many development projects in India without proper environmental clearances have gone for full-fledged development. And when they have gone for the development, what they've done is the Environmental Ministry, rather than imposing some penalties and fines on the project, it has given post facto environmental clearance by putting some office memorandums, and along with the office memorandums, sometimes through other actions like passing a circular, the Environmental Ministry has provided environmental clearance for the projects. And these projects were to the tune of nearly 20,000 crores across the country. And the Supreme Court, considering the massive damage that is going to happen to this developmental project and loss of public money, so what the Supreme Court said is, in rarest of rare cases, these kind of post facto environmental clearances can be provided to the development projects, but it should not become the norm. And even when we are giving post facto clearances to these environmental projects, there should be heavy penalties and fines imposed on the developers for going ahead with the development project without proper environmental clearances. Many environmental activists are of the opinion that the Supreme Court has compromised on its earlier stated principles of environmentalism, and along with that it is also saying that an illegality or irregularity, if it is done at a large scale, then automatically the Supreme Court is also accepting that it is going to become legal. But there is a need for a final balance between environment and development, and any development project, before it is started, it should follow the environmental clearance guidelines. That would in fact in the long run help us balance between environment and development. There is a worrying tendency in Indian markets. Indian exports are taking a hit, particularly in comparison to October of 2024. By October of 2025, there is a 12% year-on-year drop in Indian exports. And this is primarily the impact of the American tariffs, which were imposed with full potential at 50% from the August of 2025. We know very well that Trump's tariffs are a retaliatory measure in order to arm twist India in order to sign an agreement which is favorable to the Americans with respect to trade and commerce. And along with that, the Americans are also trying to punish India for importing Russian oil despite of sanctions through these kind of tariffs. Particularly, the adversely impacted segments are the textile sector is one, diamonds cutting industry is one more, then jewelry export industry is one more, and even the shrimp industry is also one more industry which has seen an adverse impact in exports. In order to counter this kind of adverse impact, many exporters are in fact subsidizing their products, because the buyers are not going to move away from Indian products if they find any substantial price rise. Because of which reason the Indian exporters are absorbing the burden, so in order to export the products at a cheaper price. And along with that, the central government also announced nearly 25,000 crore rupees as part of an export promotion policy. We are trying to reduce the logistical cost. We are trying to in fact provide multiple incentives to the exporters in order to make them export the goods at the earlier prices itself. And along with that, Indian government is also revoking multiple quality control orders, which in fact earlier insisted the exporters to buy the local products in India. Now they are procuring the cheaper products from foreign country and using them in order to re-export to the markets like America. But at the same time, we should consider this crisis as an opportunity, because this is the time when we need to focus on diversifying our export basket rather than relying only on the Americans. And the central government's policy of reducing the GST in order to promote the domestic market for Indian products is also one appreciable step in order to revive the economy of India. But according to many agencies, if the Trump's tariffs of 50% are going to continue in the long run, then it is going to have an adverse impact on Indian economy to the tune of 0.5 to 0.8% of our GDP. In order to avoid all these things, there is a need for a quicker resolution of the trade dispute that is ongoing, and there is a need for a bilateral trade agreement which the central government is in the process of negotiating. We have to wait and see for the results. United Nations Security Council has in fact passed a resolution favoring Trump's 20-point peace plan for Gaza. And this UNSC resolution, in fact, was passed with 13-0 majority, with China and Russia abstaining from the vote. We know very well that the Trump's 20-point peace plan for Gaza is a plan which was also approved by the Arab nations in Sharm el-Sheikh meeting. And along with this, one more important thing that we need to recall and remember is Trump's 20-point plan is something which is a plan which is favorable to the Israelis but not so favorable to the Hamas. It doesn't give a clear-cut financial plan, and along with that, it replaces the Israeli occupation of the Gaza Strip with an international occupation. And along with that, the third important problem with this peace plan is it doesn't have any long-term solution of two-state solution or Palestinian independence. And along with that, even the commitment of Hamas and Israel to the peace plan is very shaky, unless and until US plays a very significant role and commits its finances and military in order to secure the region. The peace plan is not going to be possible. But even then, the UN Security Council, in fact, it backed the plan, and this plan is not a plan which is owned by either the Israelis or Palestinians. Let's wait and see what this plan is going to, or how it is going to pan out and bring peace to the long war-torn region. And along with that, the plan also doesn't have any penalties on Israel for conducting the genocide of nearly 60,000 Gaza citizens. So any peace which is based on injustice is going to be inherently unsustainable. So because of all these factors, there is very thin chance of the peace plan succeeding. But even then, the UN Security Council is backing the peace plan. Let's wait and see what is going to happen. Thank you.